Hey guys, what I thought I'd do today is kind of give you a little bit of a tour of the studio from which I shoot all these live stream videos. You're going to see me looking down around a lot and so forth because, frankly, it's a mess, not because I'm messy, but because that's kind of the nature of a studio, if you will. One thing I've always, well, not always, I've recently found interesting is since I'm in the film production program and I'm learning more about this and I'm studying it and so forth, whenever we watch a TV show or a movie or a YouTube video, it's always nice and clean and elegant in that frame, right? And everything's just set up perfectly, and the aesthetic is consistent. And it just, our mind, and this is one of the magical things about video, movies, TV, you name it, our mind kind of assumes that everything outside that frame is equally set up perfectly and great and so on and so forth. What we don't know is that, yes, everything inside that frame has been meticulously designed and set up, but everything outside that frame is an utter mess because there's all kinds of equipment and gear and workers and you name it, right? So I thought I'd show you a little bit about what's in my studio as I shoot these things, okay? So with that, I tried to find like one view that isn't a mess, kind of hard. So I'm going to just kind of come along here. So I have a green screen set up. I don't use it for my live streams just yet. I'm going to move these comics so I don't step on them and kill myself and destroy them in the process. I haven't used the green screen yet, but we've got this great big light here, okay? And if let's see, I guess if I come down here, you'll see all kinds of other lights. Here we go. We have a ring light that I use for when I'm, lighting other things, right? I mean, whatever. So I have a ring light, and then I have all my computer cables and gear and so forth. I actually do plan on organizing those a little more efficiently, but right now that's all set up. And then I have all kinds of monitors and microphones set up. So what I'll do is I'll come on over here. So I have this right here. This is a boom mic. I have not used this boom mic in the live streams yet, but I'm planning on using it for some podcasts I want to do. This is the boom mic, though, I use for my YouTube videos. So if you watch any of the videos on Nutshell Brainery, I use this boom mic. I have then this mic. This is the Shure SM7B that I've been using during the live streams. Okay, so we have that set up. And then I have a couple of monitors, right? I have this monitor, and I'll kind of show you, I'll move this around here in a moment, show you how that's set up. And then, of course, back there, right there, that's my hair light or my hair light, headlight. Right there, that's my fill light, all set up on these bars and so forth. So let me come on over here and we'll kind of show you how it's set up from my point of view. Give me a moment. We'll make this work somewhat, right? Okay. So when I'm shooting, there we go. When I'm shooting, this is where I'm sitting, right? I have my camera right here, and then I have this monitor over here that allows me to kind of keep track of the OBS there, so the streaming software, OBS. I also have YouTube up on that, but I have it kind of down, but I have the comments, the chat section there. so I can watch the OBS and then have the chat. So when I'm looking at the camera, I only have to look over a little bit to see the chat. So that way I'm not looking completely away from the camera. Now, over here on this monitor, I have my PowerPoint presentation. So when I'm sharing the PowerPoint there on OBS in the live stream, I'm actually sharing this monitor. Now, the nice thing about having the monitor over this way is with the way it's all laid out, when I look to the right, I know you can't hear me really well, but when I look to the right to look at the PowerPoint, it actually looks like I'm looking at the PowerPoint there on the screen, right? So that's kind of nice. So I have my keyboard and I have my interface for the microphone and the camera. This mic I don't use. Great big light is up there. That's the key light. And then, of course, with the hair light and the fill light. The overhead light isn't on at all during all that. And then, of course, everything here on the wall. So that's kind of the way things are set up when I'm streaming with you guys. So yeah, it's a mess, right? It's an absolute mess, and that's kind of the thing, is that you don't really see everything around when you're watching the video. You're not meant to see all that. You're just meant to see that nice, clean, crisp wall, perfectly lit and so forth, unlike what you're seeing right now, because this is not perfectly lit. All right? So, all right, let's get started. And there you go, right? I'm going to go ahead and reduce that. Yeah, so right now, yeah, it looks nice and perfect and so forth, but all around me is what you saw. I find that amazing. I find it interesting that if I get the lighting set just right and the color set just right and the angle set just right, I can make everything in this frame look pretty awesome when all around me it's a complete mess. I just find that interesting. Yeah, I've been using this mic a lot lately because my wireless mic went kaput. So I've got to figure that one out. So we got this thing here, but that's all right. It works great, right? Hey, I hope you can all see and hear me all right. Let's make sure you can. Can you see and hear me? I'm sure you can. Otherwise, you would have been filling that chat there with all kinds of, hey, what's going on? And I hope you had a great weekend. For those of you that are streaming this live, hey, Michael, thank you very much. For those of you streaming this live, we just came off of a weekend. And for those of you who are watching it after the fact, I hope you're having a great day. All right, so let's get started. Hey, Valeria, how are you doing? Taylor as well. Fantastic. We got the crew all here. All right, you know what we get to talk about today? Organizational change management. Now, I want to do my whole spiel here for a moment. Organizational change management is uber important in the workplace. And it's one of these things that is quite often underappreciated, both by leadership and by the employees, those who are supposed to practice organizational change management, and those on the receiving end of organizational change management. So let me just explain real quick what organizational change management communication is all about. Everything changes, man. Everything changes, right? And when things change, you need to modify, educate the behavior of the organization. So for instance, for those of you joining me at Salt Lake Community College, and for those of you just about anywhere else going anywhere else, you know that right now we require masks if you're on campus. Now, I'm not on campus, so you get to see my squirrely face, right? But if you're on campus, you have to wear a mask, and then there's some protocols in place, social distancing, all that sort of stuff. That's an example of an ongoing organizational change management campaign. At first, it was, if you remember a year ago, guys, right? It was, we're canceling classes, everything's moving online. And then it's, all right, we're going to start doing online more permanently. And then it was, okay, we're going to have some lecture classes. And then, it's changing constantly. Organizational change management is what makes these sort of changes effective and efficient, and help people stay focused on the work. Because you know that when all this COVID stuff is going on, it's really hard to stay focused on the work. It's really hard to stay focused on school. It's really hard to stay focused on all of your obligations because everything's up in the air. Good change management makes it easier for us to change and go with the flow and to get back to work on school, work, family, obligations, all that stuff. Okay? So that's what organizational change management is all about. By the way, in corporations, this is a real position, all right? It's called OD, Organizational Development. The OD people are responsible for change management communications. This is what I did when I was at Intel Corporation. I was responsible for the communication side of OD, among other things, right? So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start exploring this. And I got to remind myself where my buttons are, right? Okay. Now, here's one of the things that's kind of fun, challenging about organizational change management. The business doesn't stop. You're going to do these changes. The business is not going to stop. And so the analogy that a friend of mine really liked to use is, it's like flying down the freeway at 70 miles an hour while changing the tires at the same time. And by the way, this is a video. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get sued, but this is a video, you can find it, where these guys are actually driving down the road, changing their tires at the same time. It's a white knuckle ride, to be sure. But that's what organizational change management is like. So, for instance, when at the beginning of the pandemic and we canceled classes and we moved them online, even though the pandemic started and we're canceling the classes, we still got to do school. We still need to teach. And so we as faculty, we were given 1 week. You might remember this, right? We were given 1 week to get our act together and start figuring out how we're going to deliver our content online. And it was a mess. Come on, guys, right? It was a mess. But that's because we had to do the change at the same time that we were actually delivering our services. So as you see with me here, I've made some changes. I've adapted to the new reality. But at the beginning, it was really harsh. I even did a little video series that you can find on Nutshell Brainery about how to adapt to this as a faculty member, because we were being asked to change at the same time that we were delivering our services. That's very challenging, but that's the nature of this, right? Yeah, Michael, this was hilarious. It's a great video. You guys got to find it. Let's see if I mouse over it. It just gives me the code. I'll put it in the comments section later on. Okay. Now, here's the thing about change, though. Change is hard. Change is hard. Now, it's not because we're obstinate or pig-headed or lazy, okay? Change is hard because life is hard, people. Life is hard, and we want to get as many aspects of our lives into a nice, simple, predictable format, right? We don't want to have to reassess how we do everything every day, because we just wouldn't be able to do it and we'd go nuts. We'd never get anything done. So when we get into a groove, we like it because we don't have to expend a lot of energy working in that groove. We can expend more of our energy in the high-level thinking, problem-solving, self-actualizing world, right? And so when change comes about, an organization is basically telling us, forget about all the high-level thinking, problem-solving, self-actualizing stuff. You need to throw that away, and you need to reassess the most basic elements of your existence. How are you going to walk into this building? Well, first you have to wait in line, and somebody here is going to be keeping tabs of how many people are in the building and how many aren't. You're going to make sure you're wearing a mask, and then you're going to social distance and pay attention to where all the things are on the floor, saying which direction to go down the aisles and where to stand when waiting in line. I've never had to think about this before, ever. And now you're expecting me to expend a lot of mental resources dealing with that and navigating it. This is difficult and challenging, okay? So don't let anybody try to tell you that you're not a team player, or that you're lazy, or that you're obstinate and so forth when we resist change. We like things the way they are, but they're still going to change, okay? So let's talk about why we resist change. First of all, in some cases, we might just plain be complacent, right? It says here, we're satisfied with the status quo. We don't see a need to change. I think everything is working just fine. I've got my routine down. I've got everything the way I want it. My ducks are in a beautiful row. I'm complacent. I don't see the need to change. This can be dangerous in business, all right? Next one is conservatism. Conservatism says, you know what, we want to safeguard our resources. We're loyal to tradition. I'm going to get my little highlighter here. We really don't want to invest in change. Investing in change takes time. It takes money. And frankly, we want to keep what we have. We want to safeguard our resources. And it's worked in the past. Why shouldn't it work in the future? Now, by the way, I'll give you an example with complacency. When digital film came out, and the filmmakers, the people like Kodak and Fujifilm, now they're still around, they're doing different things, but those who were making, actual film were like, you know what, everybody, I don't see a need to change, right? Same thing when it came to things like the BlackBerry. A communication tool back in the day. Your parents probably had Blackberries, and Apple comes out with the iPhone and they're like, whatever. Conservatism says, listen, we're the best in the world. We got to safeguard our resources. It's worked for us in the past. It's going to work for us in the future. I don't see a need to change. Another one is conceit. BlackBerry was very much a product of conceit. It's like they weren't even aware of their weakness. They were currently the best in the world. We're always going to be best in the world because we've always been best in the world. Why do we need to change? By the way, when I worked at Intel Corporation, I saw complacency and conceit all over the place. Conservatism was not really the problem at Intel, but conceiting and complacency, absolutely, right? Michael says the video in particular is hitting home for me. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you find them helpful. I really do. This sort of stuff you're going to find all over the world and in your own organizations, right? And in your own life. Let me give you an example for your own life. Do you have friends who they've chosen not to go to college because they're satisfied with the status quo? They don't see any need for change. Or, you know what, conservatism, I don't want to get in debt. I don't want to have to take out a student loan. I don't want to invest in that change. Or conceit, I don't need college. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and make $14 million by day after tomorrow. We have friends like this. We know people like this. Okay. Now, in an organization, we can also come across unclear direction from our leadership. If our leadership is not helping us understand what's happening and what's going on, we're not going to get behind it. We'll lack the skills to, and knowledge to really embrace it. Lack of motivation to change. Leadership really sets the tone. After all, they're the leaders. They set the tone for how well we engage with change and how motivated we are to change. And if they're unclear, we're not going to be motivated. Inadequate or unclear communication of what the change entails and why change is needed. Unclear goals and expectations. If you don't tell me or make it clear to me why the change is needed and what's in it for me, you're not going to get my support. It's not because I'm an obstinate cuss. It's just I need to know why it's important for me to, rip apart my life and do something differently when what I'm doing right now works great. So it's really the role of leadership to communicate why the change is necessary and what's in it for us and what success looks like. But if they don't do it, we resist. Totally normal, totally natural. Now, in other cases, the change might really affect our reason for being or our raison d'etre, right? Our raison d'etre, our reason for being is this is what gives me purpose. This is what gives me reason for doing the job I'm doing. And the fact that you're changing it is challenging my purpose in that role, right? By the way, Taylor says, hate it when they're unclear expectation. Yeah, it totally sets people up for failure. I really like the way you put that. It sets us up for failure because if you don't tell me what success looks like, I can't deliver success. It's like a bring me a rock exercise, right? Bring me a rock. Okay, here's a rock. Well, no, not that kind of rock. Okay, well, how about this rock? No, not that rock. Well, what kind of rock are you looking for? I don't know, just a rock. Round, hard. How hard can it be? Well, here's a rock. No. You're not hearing me. I just want you to bring me a rock. That's a bring me a rock exercise, right? So, yes. Well, we're going to just leave it because I want to leave it. Okay. Raison d'etre, right? Perceived as having a negative effect on my personal interests, all right? I really like the way things are done now. It gives me a sense of cultural identity, and I'm not certain where the future is going to go, and there's not a lot of clarity for how I'm going to fit into it, and so I'm going to resist. Now, I would like to tell you a story here because when I was at Intel, I have a perfect example of this resistance to change because of raison d'etre, reason for being. I had an employee, and I'm just going to call him Ted, okay? And Ted was really good at what he did. I mean, really good. Now, I don't want to go into a ton of detail just because you would be bored to death. But simply put, there was this one piece of software at Intel that allowed organizations to email employees. And we could segment the employees by their demographics, so psychographics, right? Just like you guys are doing. We could look at employees who are between the ages of this and that and the other, working in China within the first year of employment and female. And so we could say, hey, there are these benefits available to you. So we could really target who we would send these emails to. Well, this piece of software was heinous. It was so ugly to use. It was impossible to use. It was a piece of junk piece of software that Intel had developed 100 years ago. And nobody knew how to use it except Ted. Ted could make it sing. And I'm not making this up, people from all around the world, we had an organization of close to 100 people around the entire planet. People around the world, these hundreds of people, 100 people, would, instead of sending the emails themselves, they would go to Ted and say, can you send this email for me? Here are the profiles of this personalized audience that we're trying to reach. And Ted could do it like that. I mean, he was really fast, really quick. And so that basically became his full-time job. That's all he did. And he did it really well. And it made him very popular and very influential and powerful in the organization. Because if you didn't have Ted on your side, nothing would get done. This went on for years. Until one day, Intel decided to end of life, disband, stop using this software, and they replaced it with software which was much better, much easier to use, very intuitive. Anybody could use it. Overnight, Ted's position ended, right? Now, we had other work for him, so we could give him other work, but that's not what the problem was. The problem was Ted, that software, that role that he did, that was his raison d'etre. That was his reason for being. That is what made him popular and influential in the organization. But when that was taken away, he was just another schmuck. And that really messed with his head. So it was natural for him to resist that change because it changed his position in the organization. Okay? All right, let's keep going. We might disagree with the ethics, right? We might perceive that this is a breach of psychological protocol or concern that the change runs counter to our corporate culture and vision. So, for example, with the masks and so forth, you know as well as I do that 99% of people have been wearing the masks, but a lot of people have been choosing not to wear the masks. It's because they disagree with the idea that a government can mandate that somebody wear a mask. They perceive it as an infringement on their personal freedoms, okay? This is an example of where somebody disagrees with the change based on moral or ethical, or in this case, government reach reasons. So this is an example of concern that the change runs counter to, say, American culture for those of us in the U.S., and vision of independent individual freedoms and a small, control government that does not overreach its authority. So we see this sort of change, this sort of issue quite a bit as well. Now, another one is disagreement with the nature of the change. Now, in this case, it's where we all agree that some kind of change is necessary. We're on board with that, but we disagree on the nature of the change. Now, in many governmental systems, including here in the United States, but in other countries and regions as well, we see this a lot in government, right? So here in the US, we have the Democrats and the Republicans, and you might have both groups agreeing that change is necessary. Let's take healthcare, for example. Nobody in their right mind is going to say healthcare is in perfectly great shape. It works fantastic. It's marvelous. It's perfect. It's a panacea of all the world's woes. We know our healthcare system is broken. We understand that. But each side has a different take on how best to remedy this issue. So, sometimes there's lack of conviction that change is needed, but really it comes down to belief that the specific change is inappropriate. The Affordable Care Act, that change is inappropriate. Or deregulation, that change is inappropriate, right? It could be that we believe that the timing is wrong or disagree with the way that the change is being managed, okay? So for example, we know that we want to go back to school. We want to go back to lecture classes. Some people believe we should be going back to school and getting the lectures going much faster. Some people believe that we want to slow down and not be so hasty. We all agree we want to go back to the classroom, but we may disagree on the timing and how that change is being managed, okay? The last one, and this is one that I tend to fall into a lot, is I'm just tired of all the change. I'm so tired. I'm done, right? Reaction to the experience of previous changes, cumulative effect of change in one's life. I feel this way a lot when it comes to the pandemic. I feel like I need to rewire my brain on each place that I walk into. Some places require this, some places require that, some places do allow this, some places do not allow that. And it's changing constantly, right? We're in a red zone now. We know we're in a yellow zone. Now we're in an orange zone. Okay, these people are ready are eligible for the vaccine. These people are not eligible, but it depends on what county you're in. It just gets to be a lot, right? Now, for those of you playing at home, I'm in full favor of all the safety measures that we're doing to keep us safe during the pandemic. But it has an emotional toll on us, right? We cannot assimilate all this constant change and not become sort of emotionally numb to it. Overall sense of ennui toward change. So the fact is, these are all perfectly reasonable reasons to resist change. And that makes organizational change management all the more difficult and challenging. Because, dang, those are perfectly good reasons to resist change. So once again, don't let people bully you into saying, oh, you're being lazy or you're being obstinate or you're not a team player. It's like, no. I have some legitimate concerns, which we just went over. Okay. Now, I want to talk about resistance to change. And to do this, I'm going to kind of open up we're going to do a little question thing, right? I don't have a slide here, so I'm just going to say it and I'll put it in the comments. We all resist change. All right, let me zoom up. We all resist change. You do, I do, we all resist change. What I want to ask is, how do you resist change? What is your style for resisting change? Now, after I see yours, I'll share my favorites. I have some particular favorite strategies and tactics that I use to resist change. So once again, if my boss is watching this, I'm about to give her the playbook for how Lon is resisting change. All right, that's okay. I'm about as transparent as you can get. I hide nothing. So let me ask you, how do you resist change in the workplace? And then I'll share mine as well. So there it is. There's the button. Let's play with this. Okay. Oh, yep, we're here. All right, I'm going to zoom up again. And actually, I'm going to come back here to give you guys a whole bunch of points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Okay. And then we're going to get this one up to 7. Fantastic. Okay, and we'll get more coming up. You know how it is. All right, let's play with these. So let's see. We have so Elias, play along until I find a way to change it or adapt around it, right? Just kind of play along passively. I like it until you can kind of figure out how to work in that new reality and maybe even change it a different way. I like it. Sadie, I don't participate. I procrastinate. I try to talk myself out of the fact that things are being changed. Yes, that's the denial phase, right? Absolutely. Gosh, I need to put that slide in this presentation. That whole denial, steps of denial and so forth. It's not in here. I need to add it. Taylor, I find that I always get like oddly uncomfortable and almost anxious over it. No, it's not odd at all. Obviously, after the change is implemented, you adapt to it, but you don't like it at first. You know what? Taylor brings up a good point. Everything you do right now had at one time been a change that you resisted, right? But you're good with it now. Braden, procrastinating, absolutely. I like what Josh said. I complain and say it's stupid and follow my own rules. We're going to come back to that because, yeah. Avoid the situation, communicate, complain to see if things will go my way. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love it, right? Very, very good. So I'm going to show you what the research has, and then I'll share with you what I do. And yeah, you and I, my friends, we share a lot of similarities. Okay? Now, first of all, there is a passive way to resist change. By the way, there's passive and active. We all do passive and active. Okay? So it's not, well, which are you? Are you passive or active? We both do both. And by the way, there are examples in what you have here of both passive and active. So passive is agreeing verbally, but not following through. All right. So procrastinating or, I don't participate, that sort of thing. I play along with it, as Elias says. That's where we just sit in the meeting and go, okay, fine. Can I leave now? Fine. We agree verbally, but then we don't follow through. What do? We fail to implement the change. We just don't do it. Right? Or we procrastinate, right? You guys had that a lot. We feign ignorance. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. We knew darn well, right? But, we feign ignorance. We withhold. Maybe we have information that would help the change and we withhold it. We stand by and just kind of allow the change to fail. We think it's not going to last at all. We're going to allow it to fail. So let me share with you my passive ways of resisting change. See, by any means necessary. I love it. Yes. And you know what? That gives us our final awesome comment. So yes, we've got our first 10. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and do our timestamp of 9:03. Later on, send me an email that says 9:03 and I'll take care of you. Now, just so you all know, Michael's not part of our class, but he's helping us stack up the points. So, yay, Michael, right? Okay, let's come back to this. Now, the way I resist change passively is I'll sit in the meeting and I'll agree. I'll say fine. But I kind of go for I just allow the change to fail. If I don't think the change is appropriate and I'm not I don't really have skin in the game. I just kind of fail to implement. I don't do it, and I allow it to fail. So I'll give you an example. There's a process here at Slick. I forget what it's called. Success something. Success. It used to be called Starfish. Now it's Success something. I forget. I'm supposed to kind of use it in my Canvas and so forth. I don't. I just ignore it and I don't talk about it, and I hope my manager doesn't ask me about it. Here's the way it works. It's supposed to be a means by which we increase communication with our students, between the professor and the student. And my feeling is, I think I reach out a lot. I think I communicate a lot. I think I send emails and texts when I think there's something going on or to help out. I make myself available for meetings, and I have meetings with you. If I see students that are struggling and falling behind or missing an assignment, I will reach out to that student and say, hey, what can I do to help you? So I feel like I am doing a good job, and that the Success Matters, or whatever this program is basically a way to kind of systematize relationships with the students and professor. And I just don't think I need that. I don't think I need it. I don't want to use it. I'm not gonna. So that's an example of where I just kind of fail to implement and ignore it. And yes, it has changed several times, and so I just kind of feel like it's going to change again. I don't care. All right. Now that's the passive way of resisting. We also have an active way of resisting. Now, by the way, active tends to have a constructive aspect, right? So Josh says, I complain and say it's stupid and follow my own rules. I really get follow my own rules. I follow my own rules. And by the way, I actually have a manager, and my assistant dean and my dean really support us as faculty following our own rules, doing it our own way to try to bring innovation and different ideas to the learning and teaching experience. So I have support from my leadership in many ways. But you know what? Josh says complain and say it's stupid. Well, that's actually a good thing. If we're resisting change and we actually vocalize our resistance, that's good, because now we can have a conversation. Now we can talk. Now we can negotiate. Maybe we can find a better solution. So while we all use passive forms of resistance, myself included, passive is not really as constructive because it's hidden, right? It's hidden. Whereas active resistance, it can be constructive. Now, it does have a destructive aspect. Ridiculing, being critical, recruiting. Recruiting means trying to bring others on board on your side so that you can, break down a change, you can end it. I do not ridicule. I think I am critical, but I don't mean to be critical in a destructive way. I quite often have active forms of resistance, right? So, for example, my manager a couple semesters ago wanted me to take a course through what is called Quality Matters QM method. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And at the time, I did not think it was necessary. And I said, listen, we're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. However, if we get this class approved through this body and we can start teaching it online and it meets some gen ed requirements, then I will do it. And lo and behold, we got it through. So I actively resisted at the beginning, saying, I do not think it meets the criteria necessary for me to invest time in it. I'm not going to do it. However, if we get it through these, approval bodies, I will then commit. Well, we got it through, and I am now committed, and I work a lot on this project. But that's because through active resistance, I am now fully committed to the project. Whereas before, if my boss had said, I don't care what you think, you're going to do it anyway, I would have been passive. I would have been feigning ignorance. I would have said, I don't have time. I would have just kind of let it slow down. Luckily, my boss knows me well enough to say it's better to have long actively engaged, because when I'm actively engaged, people, I'm on fire. And I'm actively engaged in the project now because she was able to find a good negotiated settlement. So she's a good leader. Okay, so that's the way we resist. Now, with this in mind, let's talk about how we can actually implement change and do so in a way that mitigates to the extent possible these forms of resistance and why people resist and so on and so forth. I want to be clear, it's never going to be perfect. Never going to be perfect, right? But we can try to mitigate for it as much as possible. So let's talk about these 4 steps. First one is we really need to understand the nature of the change. So we need to evaluate the current business, define a compelling vision for the future, make the case for change, and engage the stakeholders. So let me give you an example. This is where I want to implement change, all right? I like these remote classes. I think that even after the pandemic, we should continue to offer remote classes as an ongoing delivery modality. So currently we have lecture, we have online, we have hybrid. I would like remote to be an ongoing service offering. So I want that change. I want the change. And so I've been working with various bodies and so forth to try to push for this. So what have I done? I evaluated the current businesses, the modalities that we offer, and what we're gaining from the new modality. I define a compelling vision for the future. Imagine if we can increase enrollment because we now have a new modality. You know what? A lot of our students, a lot of you guys work. You work. And you have to try to convince your managers to let you go from this time to go into class or something like that. Imagine if you could take a class during the middle of the day, but all you have to do is work with your manager to say, I need an hour-long break from 11 to 12 because I have a class then, or from 10 to 11. It's a lot easier to negotiate that and go to a conference room or to a little break room and crack open a computer and take a class than it is to get permission to leave the work site, go off to campus, and be gone for 3 hours, right? So I'm working on making a case for the change. I'm collecting data. I'm demonstrating to the powers that be that students can be engaged. Check this out, people. We've got 10 awesome comments, 8 people contributing, and just so you know, we have a few more people with us who could contribute. We could get this up to 10 and get a double, right? And so we could do great things. We could do great things. Thank you, Sadie. I'm glad you agree. And then finally, I want to engage the stakeholders, which means I got to talk to the powers that be, right? And I want to convince them and get them on board and start doing things. Okay, that's the first phase that I am following, trying to get these things to be regular. Okay, phase 2. We got to establish a governance structure. Okay, we can't just say every kind of class is online, can be broadcast. What kind of classes can be broadcast? What constitutes a broadcast class? Right now, there's only a handful of professors, I only know of 2, myself included, who use YouTube. The majority use Zoom, okay? Does YouTube count? Okay, you need to set the guideposts and the lane markers for what constitutes a an online class, right? So then you got to map out the change. Okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to include it with our other offerings? Who's eligible and so forth? Put together the resources. All right, we need to go ahead and get people who are willing to actually help implement this. I'll help implement it. Here's the thing, guys. Gosh, administration, school administration, I just want to let you know for a moment, and you don't care, but I want to say it anyway. They have it hard because school administration is understaffed. Now, they always say we can go to faculty and ask faculty to help us do these things. And we as faculty are required to work with the college to help implement things because it's called service to the college. And service to the college goes toward our tenure and so on and so forth. We are professionally obligated to provide service to the college, which is extra work for no pay. But it's part of our contract. But how many faculty want to do extra work for no pay? Right? And so when I say put together the resources, I mean, yeah, you got to find faculty who are willing to help make this happen. I'm willing to make it happen. Prepare people for change with ongoing communication. Lots of communication. Every change that has failed, I guarantee you part of the problem was a lack of communication. All right, phase 3. Develop Pathfinder projects to introduce the change systems such as pilots and quick wins. Okay, so when it comes to these broadcast classes, the next fall semester, so we're in spring now, then we have summer. In fall semester, we are actually offering some broadcast classes that are part of a pilot program, which means these classes are going to be closely monitored. We're going to collect data. We're going to, assess the effectiveness of these classes. And based on that, we'll decide whether or not this is something that we're going to go off and take a try at, okay? We're going to create symbols of change. Symbols of change are powerful. Take people with you, their hearts and minds, help them understand how awesome it can be when we offer these classes, and then ensure that the business keeps working. Remember, we have got to keep driving down the freeway at 70 miles an hour while we're changing the tires. You don't just do that. You need to have a plan in place. And so we need to make sure that we have a plan in place to make sure that during this pilot and during the change that everything goes swimmingly, okay? Phase 4, final 4, manage the change. Just stay on top of it. Don't just let it pitter away. Stay on top of it. Develop sustaining mechanisms and metrics to reinforce the change. What does that mean? It means reward people who are doing it well. Reward people who are doing it well. There's a saying in business that what gets measured gets done, what gets rewarded gets done. And so if we measure and reward a change, it'll stick. It'll stick, okay? Reward the new behaviors. Ensure that the change delivers the business, impact. I need to change that word. I don't like it when we misuse that word. But delivers on the promise. I'm contending to the school that if we offer broadcast classes, that our enrollment will go up and that people will feel, more flexible in their schedules, and the delivery of the content can be just as effective as online or hybrid or even lecture. Well, I need to deliver on that. So I'm hoping we can. And my friends, there you are. Everything you wanted to know about, not everything. Everything we could talk about in organizational change management in an hour, right? So, you know what? And you guys were great. I'm going to go ahead and take us up to the 2 more contributors because I'm sure they slid in there somewhere, right? I want to make sure you get the extra points. So give a little extra something in your point box there for you, right? So I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day and a fantastic week. The week has just begun, right? And as always, I'll stick around. If you have any questions, any comments, I'll be here for them. And otherwise, have a great day, great rest of the week, and we will see you guys on Wednesday. All right, have a good one.